This man is making me uncomfortable. I want him removed.
What? I didn't do anything. Sir, I need to see some ID. This flight is grounded.
He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He just sat there calm, quiet, while a first-class passenger stabbed the air with her finger and shouted, "Security! He's not supposed to be here." Phones lifted like weapons. Whispers spread like smoke. The black man's eyes stayed steady, but you could see it, the familiar exhaustion of being judged before he even speaks. Then the intercom crackled, not with a flight attendant's apology, but with the captain's cold, final tone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are grounding this flight immediately. If you love stories where arrogance meets consequences, tap like and subscribe." You're watching Echo Story. Gate C-27 at LAX was loud, glossy, and impatient. The woman who'd started the chaos, Mallory Klein, looked like she was dressed for a courtroom photo. White blazer, diamond studs, designer luggage, and an attitude that treated rules like furniture she could rearrange. She'd been live streaming to her followers, bragging about first-class vibes, when she noticed him board early and sit near the front. A black man, mid-40s, simple jacket, worn backpack, no flashy watch. Mallory's smile tightened. She whispered to her phone, "Something's off." Her followers flooded the chat. "Report it. Stay safe." Mallory decided she'd be the hero. His name, printed on the manifest, was Darius Cole, but Mallory didn't care about names. She cared about her feeling of control. Darius tucked his boarding pass back into his pocket and stared out the window at the gray wing, like he was trying to stay invisible. A flight attendant offered him water. He nodded politely. That's simple. Exchange made Mallory furious, like the world had just violated her private boundaries. She leaned into the aisle and addressed the cabin loudly. "Is anyone else uncomfortable?" A few passengers looked away. One man pretended to sleep. Mallory's husband, Brent, murmured, "Let it go." But Mallory didn't come to let anything go. When the doors closed and the plane pushed back, Mallory's nerves turned into performance. She stood up while the seatbelt sign was still on, smiling like a politician. "I'm sorry," she said. Loud enough for 3 rows, but I saw his bag. It's heavy. Darius didn't respond. He kept his hands visible on his lap, fingers interlaced like a man trained to look harmless. That's what bothered her most. He wasn't pleading, wasn't anxious, wasn't grateful. Mallory glanced at the overhead bins, then at the cockpit door, and made her decision. She pressed the call button repeatedly, as if summoning authority on demand. The lead flight attendant, Serena, arrived with the careful smile of someone who'd seen this exact movie too many times. "Ma'am, what can I do for you?" Mallory lowered her voice, but it wasn't really lower, just sharper. "That man is suspicious. I want security to meet the plane." Serena's eyes flicked to Darius, then back to Mallory. "He's a ticketed passenger, ma'am." Mallory's cheeks flushed. "In that seat? Are you serious?" Darius finally looked up. His gaze wasn't angry. It was measured, like he was counting consequences. He said softly, "I'm just trying to get home." Mallory snapped, then, "Do it from economy." As the plane rolled toward the runway, Mallory escalated. She pulled out her phone and began filming Darius openly. "Sir, can you show your boarding pass?" she demanded, like she was the airline. Darius didn't reach into his pocket. He simply said, "Please stop recording me." That should have been the end. It became gasoline. See? Defensive, Mallory told her camera. If you have nothing to hide, you don't mind being recorded. Brent whispered, Mallory, sit down. She ignored him, eyes glittering with the thrill of power. Serena returned, firmer now. Ma'am, you must put your phone away for takeoff. Mallory smiled and said the words that changed everything. Then call security, now. Asterisk, the plane took off into a bright California sky, but the cabin felt like a storm. Mallory waited until the seatbelt sign switched off, then stood again. As if the rules were optional for her. She marched to the galley and cornered Serena. I will not sit near him, she hissed. My father is on the board of this airline. Serena's jaw tightened. Ma'am, return to your seat. Mallory pushed past her and slapped the cockpit call button near the door, hard enough to make it echo. Captain, there's a threat in first class. The click of that button turned the cabin silent. Darius closed his eyes like he already knew where this was going. The cockpit door didn't open, but the captain's voice came through the intercom-controlled, clipped dangerous. Serena, report. Serena kept it professional, but her words carried steel. Captain, we have a passenger repeatedly harassing another passenger, filming him, and requesting security without cause. Mallory's mouth fell open. She expected Serena to point at Darius. Instead, Serena's eyes stayed on Mallory. Ma'am, Serena said quietly. Sit down. Mallory laughed, a brittle sound. So you're protecting him. Wow. Darius remained seated, hands still visible. Posture steady like someone trained not to make sudden movements around frightened people with loud voices. Then Darius made his first mistake. He reached down for his backpack. It was slow, deliberate, but Mallory reacted like a trap had sprung. He's grabbing something, she screamed. People flinched. A child started crying in the row behind. Serena rushed forward, palm up. Sir, please keep your bag under the seat. Darius froze instantly. I was getting my headphones, he said. His voice stayed calm, but something in his eyes shifted pain mixed with restraint. Mallory stepped into the aisle and jabbed her phone toward him. This is exactly what terrorists do, she declared. Somewhere in the cabin, someone whispered, "Oh my God," and meant it. That's when the captain did something no one expected. The engines changed pitch. The plane banked subtle, but unmistakable. The seatbelt sign snapped on. Cups rattled. Serena grabbed a seat back. Mallory nearly fell into the aisle and screamed. What is happening? The captain's voice returned, colder now. Ladies and gentlemen, we are discontinuing our climb and returning to the gate. This flight is grounded effective immediately. A collective gasp rolled through the cabin like thunder. Mallory stared forward, stunned. Brent grabbed her arm. You did this, he whispered. Mallory shook her head, refusing reality. No, she muttered. I saved them. I saved everyone. The plane taxied not to a normal gate, but to a remote stand far from the terminal windows. Outside, vehicles approached. Airport police, 2 black SUVs, and an airline operations van. Mallory's eyes lit with triumph. See? She hissed. To Brent, they're coming for him. Darius watched through the window, expression unreadable. Serena moved down the aisle, commanding everyone to remain seated. Phones were up again, this time recording the whole cabin, hungry for a viral ending. Mallory adjusted her blazer like she was preparing for a televised interview. Darius didn't move. He stared at the cockpit door, as if waiting for someone who wasn't Mallory's imagined villain. When the forward door opened, the first footsteps were heavy, practiced, official. 2 airport police officers entered, then a man in a navy suit. With a badge clipped at his belt, Mallory stood immediately. "Over here," she called, pointing dramatically at Darius. "That man threatened the flight. I demand he be removed." The suit didn't look at Darius first. He looked at Mallory long enough to measure her. Then he looked at Serena. "Captain requested us?" Serena nodded. The suit turned toward Darius, but his posture changed, less aggressive, more careful. "Sir," he said, voice suddenly respectful, "are you all right?" Mallory's face tightened. "Why are you asking him that?" Darius rose slowly, palms visible, and reached into his inside jacket pocket with permission in his eyes. The suited man nodded once. Darius produced a slim leather credential wallet and opened it. The nearest officer's eyebrows lifted instantly. The suit's tone shifted again, almost formal. "Mr. Cole," he said, "we received the cockpit signal." "What happened?" Mallory's confidence cracked. "Cockpit signal?" she repeated, confused. Darius spoke with quiet authority now. "A passenger repeatedly interfered with crew duties, created panic, and attempted to provoke a physical incident mid-flight." He didn't point at Mallory, but everyone knew. The suited man exhaled sharply. "Captain wants the aircraft grounded until we clear this." Mallory stammered. "This is ridiculous. I'm the victim." The cockpit door opened, and Captain Reyes stepped out like a verdict, walking into the cabin. Gray hair, 4 stripes, eyes that had seen emergencies real enough to kill. He didn't look at Darius with suspicion. He looked at him like a colleague. "Mr. Cole," the captain said, "I'm sorry you had to experience that." Mallory's jaw dropped. Captain Reyes faced the cabin and spoke loudly. "This flight is grounded because harassment and interference with crew is a federal violation. We do not fly when safety is compromised by anyone." Mallory snapped. "Compromised by him." Captain Reyes didn't blink. "Compromised by your behavior, ma'am." The cabin went still, like oxygen had been removed. Mallory tried to regain control with names and money. "I will sue this airline," she shouted. "My father," Captain Reyes cut her off. "Your father doesn't fly this plane." Then he turned to the suited officer. "Proceed." The officer stepped closer to Mallory. "Ma'am, you need to come with us." Mallory stumbled back. No, he's the threat." She pointed at Darius again, desperation turning her voice. "Ugly." Darius didn't flinch. He looked almost sad. "I asked you to stop filming me," he said softly. "You wanted a villain more than you wanted truth." Mallory's hand shook as she clutched her phone, as if the screen could protect her from consequence. When the officer tried to guide her into the aisle, Mallory jerked away and screamed, "Don't touch me." That single move shifted everything. 2 officers stepped in. Serena's eyes closed for a second like she'd seen this outcome in advance. "Ma'am," the suited officer said, "you are being detained for interfering with flight crew operations and disorderly conduct." Mallory's face collapsed. "Detained? For being careful?" Brent finally stood, voice breaking. "Mallory." You accused a man because of how he looked. She whipped her head toward him. Don't you dare, she hissed. Darius watched Brent with a flicker of empathy, like he understood the cost of living beside a storm dot as Mallory was escorted forward. She fought to keep her dignity, but it was leaking out of her like water from a cracked bottle. This is discrimination against me, she cried. The cabin didn't cheer. It didn't clap. It just watched, because the ugliness wasn't entertaining anymore. It was familiar. At the door, Mallory twisted back and spat the words one last time. He doesn't belong here. Darius took a slow breath, then answered calmly, I belong anywhere my ticket and my life allows me to be. Captain Reyes didn't let Mallory speak again. He nodded to the officers. Remove her. The door swallowed her outraged dot. With Mallory gone, the plane felt lighter, but the damage remained. Captain Reyes made an announcement. The crew had timed out due to the incident, and the flight was canceled. Groans rose, then faded into resignation. People gathered bags, muttering about hotels and missed meetings. Serena approached Darius carefully. I'm sorry, she said, voice quiet with sincerity. Darius nodded. You did your job. That matters. Serena glanced at his worn backpack. Everyone assumed. Darius finished gently, that I was a problem. He looked down at his hands. My mother used to say the loudest fear in the room is usually the least informed. Serena swallowed hard. Who are you? She asked. Darius hesitated, then gave a small smile. Someone who makes sure planes are safe. In the emptying cabin, Captain Reyes sat beside Darius for a moment. Two men framed by a window full of flashing lights. You could have exposed her sooner, the captain said. Darius shrugged. I shouldn't have to. That's the point. Captain Reyes nodded slowly. They'll post it, he murmured, glancing at the phones. They'll make it a clip. Darius sighed. Let them. Maybe it teaches someone's daughter not to fear a man for existing. Captain Reyes looked at Darius with respect. For the record, he said, grounding this flight wasn't just policy. It was principle. Darius's eyes softened. Principle is expensive, he replied, but not as expensive as letting hate fly. They stood together, silent, as the last passenger walked out. Hours later, Mallory's video never became the hero story she wanted. The internet saw the full angle, the finger pointing, the filming, the captain grounding the flight, and the moment she was led away while Darius remained calm. A new clip trended instead. Darius's line, I belong anywhere my ticket and my life allows me to be. In the terminal, Serena watched strangers replay it and shook her head. Darius boarded a different flight later that night, still in the same simple jacket, still carrying the same worn backpack, still refusing to shrink. And somewhere in the quiet, he texted one message. Echo Story is going to tell this right. Because some stories aren't about airplanes at all, they're about who society tries to deny a seat until truth grounds the whole flight.